Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday and welcome back to the stream. I am sighing this massive sigh of relief that we are actually live right now and I have internet connection. Preface by saying we might not have internet connection. I am nothing if not a conspiracy theorist. Wait for the thunder. It just lightninged. I hope you guys can hear that. I am nothing if not a conspiracy theorist. And the last 4 days in a row, not even an exaggeration, my internet service with Xfinity has gone out in the middle of the day for hours and hours and hours and hours. Not because I didn't pay my bill, not because there's something wrong with my equipment. They just say there's an area outage in South Florida, and this keeps happening 4 days in a row. So is Xfinity dealing with a hack? Some sort of cybersecurity issue? I don't know, but it's very difficult when you work from home and you have to do a live stream and everything from your computer, and you literally cannot use your computer and or the internet. So crazy stuff as we inch closer to potentially some internet problems in the future, depending on who you ask. And I was super, super embarrassed earlier today. I was on People of the Internet, my other live show with Dave Rubin, and we cut out literally halfway through the show. I just had no internet. So pray that that doesn't happen during the stream today, because this is a very important stream. But also now it is monsoon storming outside in South Florida. And literally lightning just struck right outside the window of this room. And it was very, very loud and shook the whole house. So we've got a little scared sleepy nugget who doesn't want to get struck by lightning with us on my lap today. But we will hang tight, deal with all of it, roll with the punches. That's the world of live streaming and working from home and content creation. You guys, I'm so glad you guys are here. We have a very interesting stream today, and it might be a bit controversial. So I really want you guys to weigh in throughout the conversation in the chat. France has become the first country in the entire world to legally enshrine access to abortion in their constitution nationally as a constitutional right. And legal scholars all over the world are saying that other countries are likely to now follow suit in making abortion a constitutional right, including potentially even here in the United States of America. In other pro-life or pro-abortion news, CVS and Walgreens have announced this week that starting this month, they are going to start selling mifepristone, the abortion pill, over the counter at pharmacies without even needing to see a doctor in some states, but across the country at CVS and Walgreens locations, which is crazy. And live action is under serious fire with the national media because several states are trying to incorporate a video that they had put together on fetal development stages as part of biology curriculum in all of their states, and the world is losing their minds, saying that this is a piece of pro-life propaganda and that it has no place in American classrooms. So we're going to unpack all of it on the stream today. You guys might agree with everything that I'm saying. You might fundamentally disagree with all of my takes on these abortion-related news topics, but I hope that you stick it through to the end and help us have a really productive, interesting conversation with a lot of dialogue back and forth using the chat right below you or right off to the side, depending on where you guys are watching. Really quick, as we're getting started, did you guys catch my interview with Danica Patrick yesterday? She is so awesome. I have loved getting to know her over the last several months through the interwebs, through social media. It's funny when you become somewhat of a public figure and you make friends with people on social media who are other public figures. You guys will talk really frequently, or you'll share each other's videos all the time and develop this sense of rapport, but then you meet each other in real life and it's hey, am I saying nice to meet you? I've already known you for a really long time. I feel like I have that type of relationship with so many different people, but it has been so fun getting to know Danica and see the impact that she's been able to have by just speaking up and sharing her values from an unapologetic perspective. If you guys missed that, Danica Patrick was our guest on the stream yesterday, and you can go back and rewatch the stream on any of our long-form video platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Getter, Locals, etc. if you guys didn't get a chance to tune in live. Let's say hi to a couple people real quick before we dive into this story out of France becoming the first country to constitutionally enshrine abortion, and we will jump right in. We've got Gertie. Did you guys hear that? That is literally thunder shaking my house. Actually, lightning is striking right outside this freaking window. Let's pray the internet doesn't go out, but we'll just roll with it. We've got Gertie watching from the Netherlands. JK Harris says, I'm in Utah in the hospital. Oh, I'm so sorry, and I hope that you feel better. We've got Mike watching from Texas. People watching, more people in Utah. Very, very fun. We love that. France, lots of people watching from France. Good. I want you guys to weigh in as French citizens with what's going on in your country. People watching in the UK. We've got New York City tuning in. Over on Getter, The World is Like a Zoo is kicking things off for us in the chat. On Locals, Red 4, African Warlord, M-Rock, Alex, Smeddy, and Nitty Witty and more are in the chat. Great to see you guys. Over on Rumble, we've got Old Man Trucker, Tito, JD, John Best, Gypsy Warrior, and more. And finally, over on YouTube, Church says, Corgi! Yes, she has now climbed down to her bed where she is taking a nap. And I promise now that we've moved to the new house, I'm working on the Corgi cam for you guys for the stream. Do not worry. Cody is in the chat. Total Package and Los Ravosa. Hello to all of you guys. As we're jumping into this story coming out of France, do me a huge favor. And if you haven't already liked the stream, we want as many people in the chat as possible to weigh in on what you guys think. So hit that thumbs up or heart button, depending on where you're watching. And most importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button to help us continue growing this independent community one day at a time. I realized, by the way, that when I do this, I look so old. I'm like betraying Generation Z, but I'm so bad at doing the Gen Z heart. Oh, maybe I actually can do it. I'm trying. Apparently, the youths make the heart this way, and millennials, old people, according to the youths, make it this way. And as a Gen Zer, I feel like I gotta like retrain my body. Anywho, different conversation for a different time. Let me just preface as we start talking about several different abortion-related topics today with where I'm coming from. And again, you guys might have a fundamentally different worldview than myself. That's okay. I invite you to stay through the entirety of the stream because we want this to be a back and forth dialogue where we actually are allowed to have conversations that the powers that be tell us we are never allowed to have. And particularly on the issue of abortion, I have found, speaking on college campuses, to high school groups, and on the internet, people just get so uncomfortable with the idea of even talking about this issue that we really never have productive conversations about it, ever. Ever. We really just end up screaming at each other and blocking each other on social media. There goes the thunder again. So I hope that you guys feel a sense of opportunity to be here and participate in this dialogue today. But where I'm coming from, I am unapologetically pro-life. A lot of that stems from my religious values, but even beyond that, you guys might know that before I ever became a content creator, I was in biomedical sciences in college. I was pre-med, and my ultimate dream was to become a surgeon. I thought maybe I wanted to go into trauma surgery or figure out this really cool emerging field of neonatal surgery where we're operating on babies in utero, putting them back into the womb and then waiting for them to be delivered full term. Absolutely crazy that we have the technology to do that. I ended up getting my master's degree in public health policy, but a fancier name than that at Georgetown University. So my scientific background in education really is what formed my personal unapologetic pro-life beliefs, that life begins at conception because that is a biological reality. You would be very hard-pressed to find any certified brilliant biologist that would disagree with you on that reality, and that if life begins at conception, it doesn't matter if you are a zygote or you are a 100-year-old geriatric individual. At any stage during your human development, you are a human. You either are or you aren't. And if you are worthy of our undying respect, love, and protection under law. Again, you guys might disagree with me on that, but that's where I'm coming from in these conversations. So when I see stories like this one coming out of France this week, it honestly really shatters my heart because while there have been so many major wins in the pro-life movement around the world and what in America we are calling the Post-Roe generation, the generation after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we've had so many wins, but we start to see so many areas of backlash and areas where in policy, people are trying to go to the ends of the earth to legally protect the right to end another human being's life for any reason under the sun. And throughout history, we've seen this happen with other human rights disasters and arguably genocides. We have obviously seen this legally protected in times of history like the Holocaust, in times of history like the Rwandan genocide, and many, many other genocides throughout human history. But for whatever reason, even though we can look back on those darkest chapters of human history and call it disgusting and depraved and eugenics and every other horrible label under the sun, as soon as we try to apply that same logic to a preborn child, to a baby, to the smallest, most innocent, voiceless people among us, it makes no sense. It doesn't compute for people. You're a bad person if you want to protect people's lives, and you're a good person if you want to legally enshrine the opportunity to take somebody else's life. And that never makes any sense to me, the complete human rights ideological double standard that exists on this particular topic. But I think the powers that be and people in media and politics and just controlling voices in culture and society have been so intentional and so targeted in manipulating emotions over this issue that they'll tell you that women are going to literally die if we don't legally protect abortion, which is not true. I mean, look what's happened all across the United States since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. In states that have essentially completely outlawed abortion, you'd be really hard-pressed to show me one example anywhere of a woman who has died because she was unable to end the life of her child. They tell you that women's rights are going to be set back decades and they'll never be able to be successful if we don't legally protect abortion, which is not true. First of all, women are more than just corporate puppets that can be used by woke corporate overlords in their high-rise offices in San Francisco and New York City. Women have a capacity to be so much more. Like, believe it or not, you can have it all at the same time. You can have a career and a baby and a husband and be a mom and have an incredible job or a passion that you invest in from your business perspective. They are not mutually exclusive. And then you also hear that women are going to literally go to prison if they get abortion when it's outlawed or if it's not constitutionally, federally protected in all of these countries. No, that's not actually true. And again, you would be really hard-pressed to find a single example of any of these things happening. It is just crazy to me, the amount of emotional and linguistic manipulation that's happened on this issue for so long. And I haven't even mentioned the complete removal of the word abortion for so long. We call it reproductive rights or women's health care, of which it is neither. We call babies clumps of cells or fetuses, even though fetus in Latin literally means small person, tiny person. That's all it means. It doesn't remove the humanity when you call a baby a fetus, but it at least removes some of the emotional connection with a baby. And I could keep going, example by example by example. So in the era of a post-Roe v. Wade America, when we've had so many wins, sadly, it doesn't surprise me, but it is devastating to me when stories like this start to dominate the headlines, because the backlash is going to be even stronger when there are pro-life wins that start popping up all over the world. And again, this is not an American issue in isolation either. Obviously, it's an issue in Europe, and I'm hoping that you Frenchies watching will be able to weigh in on what's happening in your own country. But there are March for Life events that happen all over the world every single year on an annual basis. I traveled to Wellington, New Zealand at the beginning of December to be a guest speaker at the New Zealand March for Life. In May of last year, I went to Canada for the Canadian March for Life. I know people who go every single year to the Ireland March for Life, to the Italy March for Life. This is a movement all over the world of good people waking up to the horrors and evil and frankly genocide of the abortion industry and realizing this is the greatest human rights issue of our time, our most fundamental human right, before we can argue about anything else, before we can argue about freedom of speech and freedom of religion or housing or healthcare or anything else. Our most fundamental human right is the right to life. And if you take away societal appreciation or protection of that right, all of a sudden everything else will come to follow as erased from society as well. So it doesn't matter if you would agree with me religiously. It doesn't matter if you would agree with me politically and consider yourself to be generally more right of center. None of that has anything to do with what we are talking about today. What we are talking about today is, simply put, the greatest human rights issue of our time, the largest genocide the world has ever known, with the slaughter of uncounted millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of innocent children all over the world, and the societal manipulation that is accompanying this human rights issue by trying to get you to believe the lie as truth and the truth as a lie. Unfortunately, that has become somewhat partisan, even though it shouldn't be, in the last several decades around the Western world. And that's exactly what we saw coming out of France this week. So this was published yesterday and is breaking news all over the pro-life or pro-abortion side of things. If you guys keep hearing the thunder, I'm so sorry. It is like flooding outside, raining in Florida. But France became the first country in the entire world this week to enshrine a constitutional right to an abortion in their federal constitution. This is from CBS News, but several different news sources obviously have been covering this across the political space. And I thought I would just give you guys the 30,000 foot overview of this before getting your opinion on whether or not this could happen in America, your own country, if you don't live in either, or replicate it around the world. France became the first country, and CBS News says, to enshrine a woman's right to an abortion in its constitution. Lawmakers from both the upper and lower houses of parliament met on Monday and easily passed the historic amendment. When I say easily passed, I am not exaggerating. The bill was approved in an overwhelming almost 780 to 72 vote, and nearly the entire joint session stood in a long-standing ovation. So overwhelmingly, almost unanimously, lawmakers in France decided to enshrine abortion as a constitutional right in France, even though abortion rights were never really at risk in France. The right to end the life of your child was never really at risk in France. It certainly wasn't as contentious ever as it has been in the United States of America. And there's really not a lot of pro-life activism that's happening in France, like you see in countries like the United States or even Ireland or the UK. It's always been a pretty pro-abortion society. I'm seeing a lot of people start speaking up in the chat right now. Simply Tommy says, I'm French and I'm completely speechless. I mean, you should be. You should be speechless because your lawmakers almost unanimously, 780 to 72 in a joint session of parliament, voted to enshrine the ending of an innocent life as a constitutional right in the country of France. So what's interesting is, again, like I said, French citizens didn't really have a concern that rights to an abortion were going away in their country. This entire thing started and snowballed out of concern in France that the United States overturning Roe v. Wade was going to somehow inspire pro-life activism all over the world, that the United States embracing a more pro-life perspective and deciding to overturn Roe v. Wade and leave it up to the states to regulate abortion is all of a sudden going to inspire people all over the world to say, maybe abortion really is a bad thing and we shouldn't be legally supporting it in our country. So French President Emmanuel Macron decided to take it into his own hands and say that no, that's never going to happen in France. It might happen in the United States of America, but that's never going to happen in France. And we are going to ensure a woman's right to an abortion to be protected under the Constitution, just in case, theoretically, anybody in France decides to try to push for an end to abortion in the future at some undisclosed, theoretical, hypothetical time in the future. So this has been happening for the last 2 years in France, where President Macron is saying, nope, we have to enshrine this in our country just in case there's any crazy radical truth-seeking pro-lifers out there who want to try to educate people in our own country about the reality of the abortion industry. And because of that, we are going to completely amend our own federal constitution. So this was called the amendment to Article 34 of the French Constitution. And specifically, it explicitly enshrines, and I quote, a woman's guaranteed freedom to have recourse to an abortion. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, announced after the vote that the amendment would be inscribed in the Constitution on Friday. So it's going to officially take place, that this amendment has gone through in the next few days. And what's important about Friday? It's International Women's Day. Because the only way women can ever be celebrated or successful or equal to men in society is if we convince her and all of us that your only value comes from not being a mother. That ending the life of your child is empowering, that it's going to make your life better, that all of a sudden you're going to be set free from the bondage of the patriarchy, apparently, instead of actually inspiring you to know that you are capable of so much more, that you are capable of being a mother and an employee or a business owner or a student somewhere, that your body is strong and equipped to handle the badass, unprecedented, unparalleled task of growing a new human life. Why are we not celebrating that? That in and of itself is so inspiring and so powerful, but not according to people like Macron, who says on Friday there's going to be a ceremony in central Paris open to the public to celebrate this vote as a matter of French pride and a universal message around the world for feminism, I guess. What's really sad is because France is already such an overwhelmingly pro-abortion country, it is very, very, very celebrated around the country that this was happening. Several opinion polls have found that more than 80% of the French population is in approval of amending the Constitution to ensure this right. So it wasn't like this was under threat to go away in any sense, but it certainly isn't going away anytime soon moving forward, with 80+% of the country saying that they are staunchly in favor of this particular move. Just as a little bit of history for you, abortion was legalized in France way back in 1975. In 2022, the legal limit for abortions was extended from 12 to 14 weeks amid anger that French women were often forced to travel abroad for the procedure. So for the record, people well into their second trimester of pregnancy, in case you don't understand what the week cutoff means, well into their second trimester of pregnancy, were traveling all over Europe to obtain abortions 14 weeks into their pregnancy that they weren't able to get in France, which is incredibly, devastatingly sad reality to me and fact to me that people don't really want to talk about. But it's true that these children are children with fully formed organs. They can feel pain at this particular time in pregnancy. They have their own sense of emotions and even flavor, taste at this point in pregnancy. But it had to be extended because they were going somewhere else to obtain these particular procedures. And of course, we have to tie this all back to feminism because Congress on Monday, when they had this historic vote, was opened by a woman for the first time in France. She said, "I am proud to pay tribute to all of the women who have written, have acted, have fought daily so that we can climb the steep slope leading to equality between men and women," which is all packaged up in this beautiful bow of the only way for women and men to be equal is for women to be encouraged and legally protected to end the life of her child. Otherwise, she means nothing in society, which is degrading and disgusting and, frankly, an all-out lie. But I'm really curious, for those of you guys who are watching, especially in Europe, do you think this is something most people are in favor of? Do you find yourself in favor of this constitutional amendment? Or is this the exact wrong direction society should be moving in and is only going to make the fight for life, for our most commonly shared universal human right, that much more difficult? Because the truth is, what historically has been true, that policy in America inspires policy around the world. I actually think the reverse has been true under the last 5 to 10 years or so. Policy in Europe has been largely inspiring policy in Canada and the United States. You see that on a lot of free speech issues. You certainly have seen that on immigration policy in the last several years. And sadly, I think at least under our current national government in America, this will inspire our own government in America to do the same thing, or try to do the same thing in the United States, walking back the progress that was made in 2022 with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This is interesting. I hadn't really thought about this. Falabella says the Argentinian president calls abortion homicide aggravated by trusting relationship. Ooh. deep. And a good reminder that for all of the insanity in countries that we see like France, Lord, we have seen what you did for Argentina. Lord, make it possible in our own countries, because Javier is the GOAT and I absolutely love him. But there are good people trying to stand up and create policy based in objective truth for this as well. Gaming Crafting said Switzerland and Germany's eyes are only on the Ukraine war. I can tell you that much. That's interesting. So some countries might not even be paying attention to stuff like this. That's really fascinating. Maddie Melise says L France. Well, there you go. Most people might not be in favor of all of this stuff. That's fascinating. If you guys are watching in Europe, do you support France's new constitutional amendment, or do you think this is a really big problem? Old Man Trucker has an interesting thought. He says the left wing really wants a one world government. So a policy like this actually is likely to take root in other countries as well, because ultimately policies in one country will just reflect the policies in all the other countries as well. Well, certainly if some of the powers that be had their way, I wouldn't be surprised if we start moving in that direction. Church says they, the French population, are in favor of it because they think that it's normal and never had to actually think about it, given that this was never an issue. It's just a position that you have to take to be on the right side, but they don't know what this actually entails. I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And that's true in the United States as well. Most people, most women especially, who support abortion have absolutely no idea what an abortion procedure actually is. No clue. When I'm on campus and I ask people to describe the policy or the actual procedure for me step by step, they just draw a blank stare and they have absolutely no idea how to explain this, even sadly when they've obtained abortions for themselves. So I think there is an intentional effort to keep people uneducated, to help people not think about it because it's uncomfortable, because we're not having these conversations, and certainly not to know much about fetal development, what's happening inside their body when they are pregnant with a beautiful baby, because they don't want people to wake up and realize the reality. So when a country is so overwhelmingly pro-abortion, like France, with 80% of the population in support of this new constitutional amendment, I wonder how much of that has to do with complete lack of education for what an abortion is. That's fascinating. Rashika says, Stephanie says, I'm from France. I am not in favor. I reposted the second trimester surgical abortion video from Live Action, and they keep telling me that it is propaganda. We're going to come back to the Live Action video, I promise, but keep doing what you're doing, because if you can continue telling the truth to your own sphere of influence in France, you have no idea how many minds you are sure to change in the process. We've got A Main watching, says, I don't support this. I am a biologist. For me, none of this is right. That's fascinating. Tomas says, information about the French Constitution made me really sad. So many lives. Oh, this is crazy. HJ says, love your content, have learned a lot from you. Good. Well, I hope you're about to learn a whole lot more. So on this note that people being so overwhelmingly in favor of abortion actually might mean that they are uneducated about it, something that I think has been really interesting in the United States over the last several years is these nonprofit organizations that I do a whole lot of work with, like Students for Life or Save the Storks or even Live Action. The work that they are doing to educate my generation, that we have dubbed ourselves to be the pro-life and post-Roe generation, to know what an abortion actually is, has been so invaluable. And when people confront the reality and the scientific truth of the humanity of a preborn baby, it is so easy to get people to change their lives on, or change their opinions, and frankly, their lives because of their opinions, on how they feel about abortion. I'm sure many of you guys have seen the videos of Man on the Street interviews from Live Action, where they show this video that they've put together called Baby Olivia, talking about development of a child in the womb. And then they ask people before they show the video, are you a person, or are you a person who considers themselves to be pro-abortion, or are you a person who considers themselves to be pro-life? And like 99% of the time people say, I support abortion, I support abortion. And then they show these videos of what an abortion procedure actually is, or how a baby starts developing in the womb. And almost 100% of the time, the person that they're talking to says, yeah, just kidding. I had no idea that the procedure looked like that. I had no idea that babies were that that developed that early, I would consider myself to be pro-life now. So this little tiny bit of education is making all the difference in the world. And live action's Baby Olivia video that has made the rounds and gone incredibly viral on social media might actually be taking root in several different states' curriculum in public schools moving forward, which is really exciting. As I'm sure you can imagine, the mainstream media is losing their minds over the prospect of a video put together by a pro-life group being shown in public schools. But of course, they never bat an eye over the fact that Planned Parenthood is the drafter and writer of the vast majority of sex ed curriculum in public schools in the United States. That's totally kosher. But if a live action video were to make its way into public school classrooms, that would be the end for all humanity and goodness in American culture. So first, I just want to show you what this live action video looks like that might be making its way into several different public school classrooms to understand the reality of what fetal development actually looks like. And then we're going to come back and see how the media is reacting to this stuff.
This is Olivia. Though she has yet to greet the outside world, she has already completed an amazing journey. This is the moment that life begins. A new human being has come into existence. At fertilization, her gender, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, and countless traits are already determined. She begins to implant in the uterus about 1 week after fertilization. Her cells organize into what we call an embryo. At 3 weeks and 1 day, just 22 days after fertilization, Olivia's heartbeat can be detected. The buds of her arms and legs appear by 4 weeks. She begins to
4
move
weeks.
between
That's
5
crazy. Sorry, I know you guys couldn't hear me. I fixed it. I'm sorry. I was saying earlier, there's no way they could ever allow in a public school classroom a video that says life begins at fertilization or conception, right? They would never. How can we allow children to learn this in a science class in school? But how beautiful that your arms and your legs are forming at 4 weeks. That's crazy, insanely cool to me as a scientist.
6 weeks, with both spontaneous and reflexive movements. At 6 weeks from fertilization, her brain activity can be recorded, and bone formation begins.
6 weeks old in the womb, your brain activity can be recorded from an external monitor. How cool is that?
She can bring her hands together at 7.5 weeks, and separate fingers and toes emerge. She can also begin to hiccup. At the beginning of the 9th week, Olivia will have grown from a single cell into nearly 1 billion cells, and she is now called a fetus. She will suck her thumb and swallow, grasp an object, touch her face, sigh and stretch. At 11 weeks, she is playing in the womb, moving her body and exploring her environment. Her taste bud cells have matured by week 12 but are still scattered throughout her mouth. Her mother will first sense Olivia's movements between 14 and 18 weeks, an event called quickening. Beginning at 18 weeks, ultrasounds show speaking movements in her voice box.
So not only is your baby moving around in the womb in the 2nd trimester, well, actually, she's moving around well before that, but you can feel her moving around within the 2nd trimester. She's talking. Your baby is talking out loud inside the womb. How cool and beautiful is that?
Around 20 weeks, with a lot of help, babies have survived outside the womb.
That's true, by the way. That's not propaganda. If you look up the earliest a baby has been born and has survived with medical intervention, of course, but it's getting down into 20 weeks and might even dip below that with new medical intervention technology.
At 27 weeks, her eyes are responding to light. She can recognize her parents' voices and will even recognize lullabies and stories. Olivia has gone on an amazing journey during these last 9 months. She will soon signal to her mother that it is time for delivery and greet the outside world.
That's it. That's the whole video, okay? So we're talking about a 3-minute video. That's it. Talking about scientific reality of fetal development. And the idea that this video might be shown in public school classrooms has the mainstream media and politicians melting down, completely melting down, because how dare you share the scientific biological fact that life begins at conception and that a baby has certain developmental stages that it goes through in utero. The Associated Press decided to cover this, and the way that they categorized this particular video and the initiative to get this video in classrooms is shocking to me. And maybe it shouldn't be, but it is just ridiculously outrageous. And there are many, many other outlets covering this as well. But they say, baby Olivia isn't a real baby. It's an animated fetus that develops over the course of a 3-minute video that has become a new front in state-level abortion politics. Bills in Iowa, Kentucky, Missouri, and West Virginia would require public school students to watch a video like Baby Olivia, which was created by an organization that opposes abortion. The legislation mirrors a North Dakota law passed last year. The organization, Live Action, and supporters of the legislation say that it would teach kids where they came from and encourage an appreciation for human life. But some educators and physicians— they didn't say some physicians, they said physicians as this blanket term, so like doctors everywhere, say that the video is deceptive and is problematic for a young audience. Problematic for your child to be learning about the scientific reality of where life comes from. Okay, that's nice. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, a professional organization with more than 60,000 members, said in an email that the video is anti-abortion misinformation designed to manipulate the emotions of viewers. So the overseeing body of OBGYNs, the people responsible for gynecological care for women, for obstetrics care when your baby is developing, and even for delivering your baby into the world, as an organization, the American College of OBGYNs, with 60,000 members, called that video that we just watched together hardly controversial, doesn't even mention even the remote topic of abortion, anti-abortion misinformation designed to manipulate the emotions of viewers. Wow. We just watched the video. You just saw it yourselves. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it was hardly controversial in any sense of what that word means. But watch how AP tries to categorize it. They say, what's in the video? The video shows an egg being fertilized and implanted, then walks through embryonic and fetal development over the course of a pregnancy. That, I think, is fair. It calls out general markers in the average developmental process using weeks after fertilization. That is different from weeks after the last menstrual cycle, which is what a pregnant person would typically hear from the doctor. A pregnant person. Thank you, AP. Iowa physicians and educators said in a letter to state lawmakers that by using weeks after fertilization, the video misleads viewers because the framing indicates milestones happen about 2 weeks earlier than is accurate. The idea of using weeks after fertilization versus weeks after menstruation has been long contested about fetal development, but also doesn't change the fact that those things are happening when your baby is developing. Like, it is not a clump of cells. Whether you would categorize it as 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after or whatever, it's still happening. There's no change to the scientific reality of that video, which I just find fascinating. What else do critics point to? The Iowa physicians and educators said references to fetal heartbeat are widely disputed. At 6 weeks, the embryo isn't yet a fetus and doesn't have a heart. So it's not a person, it's just a clump of cells, right? The video also describes the animated figure's motions and actions with words like playing, exploring, sighing, and making speaking movements. Those words assign human traits and properties to a fetus, which is still a human. Fetus literally means small person in Latin. That's all that means. So you're assigning human characteristics to a human, but they can't say it that way because this is the mainstream media that we're talking about here. Let me read that sentence again, and let's just soak that in. Those words assign human traits and properties to a fetus, in other words, to a human, that are more sophisticated than medicine can prove. What? Ah! I hate people so much. I can't. According to a practicing OBGYN and the co-founder of Iowans for Health Liberty, which advocates for reproductive health care, well, I'm sure that they have absolutely no vested interest in trying to get you to believe that abortion is vital health care when that's literally the foundation of their organization that would benefit from that. But, you know, I can't. So, what do schools already teach about sex and pregnancy? Many states have started to more strictly regulate what is taught about sex ed and when, which, by the way, just as a reminder, Planned Parenthood is the author of the vast, vast majority of sex ed curriculum in the United States in public schools. So when we're talking about what kids are learning in their classroom, we're talking about an organization that seeks to financially benefit from these students learning that your only good solution to an unexpected pregnancy is to come down to our office down the street and pay us, and we won't even tell your parents. Don't even worry about it, which sadly, no, is not an exaggeration. That does happen in many states across the United States. And they're obviously incentivized to promote sex to young people because they are financially benefiting when you have to face an unexpected pregnancy and then you're billed the solution as an abortion procedure, or your life is literally going to be over. So as they say, because there has been a much larger abortion-related conversation in America since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there have been many states realizing, you know, we really don't want Planned Parenthood teaching our kids sex ed. And it's just a little counterintuitive to the values of our state. So we're going to more strictly regulate what sex ed looks like in classes. They say states and federal agencies' goal in educating students is typically to prevent teen pregnancies. Well, I don't know that that's actually true, and reduce the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. Teaching kids about pregnancy and conception should be part of an all-encompassing and medically accurate curriculum, says Katie Christensen, the director of who? Who did I just say? Oh yeah, Planned Parenthood. Shocking, who has a graduate degree in human development and family science. When we're looking at promoting healthy well-being, especially in our adolescence, never once have I seen it said, these kids really need to see an ultrasound video. Well, duh, you work at Planned Parenthood. You don't even show expecting mothers ultrasound videos. Why would you have an incentive to show children an ultrasound video to talk about what happens during pregnancy? I hate the media so freaking much. North Dakota's new law requires health and human sexuality courses to include a 3-minute ultrasound video and a computer-generated rendering of development in the womb. While the law doesn't mandate showing baby Olivia, the video we just watched, the state's Department of Public Instruction specifically references it as an option. AP asked 12 of North Dakota's largest school districts about the video. Of the 10 that replied, 5 use baby Olivia. One is Fargo Public Schools, which accounts for about 10% of the state's students, and additionally shows a second video to 9th graders. In Bismarck, they don't use baby Olivia, but West Fargo Public Schools shows a longer video than the 3-minute video that we just watched. And now that these other states, Iowa, West Virginia, Missouri, and Kentucky, are considering similar legislation, it's likely that the video we just watched could be shown in public schools across many different states in the United States. But is it not obvious to everybody reading this article and every other hit piece that has been written about it that clearly the goal here by the powers that be is to make sure we don't think about development of a child, to make sure we don't think about the humanity that we have to recognize and see with our own eyes of a preborn baby in the womb. If they cared at all about the humanity of that baby, they wouldn't be encouraging us to watch ultrasound videos. They would be encouraging videos like Baby Olivia to be part of health curriculum, which is important. I mean, our health starts when we're developing in the womb, right? But instead, there is an absolute concerted effort to melt down in the mainstream media as soon as there's even remotely a proposal to talk about an ultrasound, to show an animated video of how you develop as a child in the womb, because it's anti-abortion propaganda. It's a misinformation campaign designed to tug at your emotions, as was said by several of the people interviewed in that particular article. But is it not then a concerted effort to manipulate your emotions when you say women are going to literally die if we don't enshrine abortion with legal access in our state or country? Is it not manipulating our emotions when you say that that's not a baby, it's a clump of cells? It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't have emotions. It can't even move. It certainly can't feel pain. That's not a baby. It's just a clump of cells. It's just tissue. Is that not manipulating our emotions? Is it not manipulating our emotions when you refuse to acknowledge scientific fact about anything for this particular subject, but you're happy to use misinformation in science and call it the science when we talk about child gender transition, for example? Alternative facts, according to you, are totally okay there to manipulate emotions, but just not in this particular situation. It's shocking to me, the concerted effort that is being concurrently waged by the media, by influencers, by politicians, by entire countries to make sure that we do not understand or ever think about what an abortion procedure actually is. And the result of that, the result of us not knowing, the result of our intentional lack of education and the misinformation that's been put out there instead is this. It's entire countries using manipulation, using emotional scare tactics, using a lack of scientific evidence in the conversation, just completely omitting that, to constitutionally and legally protect a right to end the life of an innocent human being, which is the very opposite of a free country. It is the very opposite of a progressive society. We don't like to say it that way because all of those words have even lost all meaning: progressive, conservative, etc. But a truly progressive society would be dedicated, fighting actively on offense to preserving human rights. And if we take away unilaterally, unanimously almost in the French Parliament, our most common, basic, shared human right, the right to life, none of the rest of them matter. None of the rest of them matter. I'm tired of being labeled a propagandist because I am pro-life, when all of the propaganda out there in society, when the mainstream narrative of propaganda is pro-abortion. I'm tired of people saying that the right to life is somehow this inherently religious or conservative or right-wing or fascist issue, when it has nothing to do with partisan politics or your religious identity at all. It's a human rights issue, the greatest human rights issue the world has ever seen. I'm tired of being told you don't support the science when literally all of the science is being omitted from the conversation intentionally to manipulate you to make sure that policies like this will come to your country next. I'm tired of being told supporting abortion is pro-woman, because it's not. It puts the life of the mother at risk just as much as it ends the life of a child, whether it's chemical or surgical. It causes unimaginable amounts of anxiety, depression, suicide, substance abuse, and anything else you can imagine from a trauma response. And it rips away our most beautiful inherent gift as women from entire generations of women, our ability to grow and create new human life, which is insane. It's so cool. It is mind-bogglingly amazing that we have the capability to do this. And also have a job and go to school and have dates and all of the above. You are a badass as a woman simply because you are a woman. But these people can't even just stop at getting you to believe that pregnancy is horrible, that it's the end of your life, that it's to be treated like an illness. They even have to take the idea of pregnancy away from women and try to give it to men because progressivism, I guess. We might not have the same conversation happening in America today, at least to the level of feasibility in France of creating abortion as a constitutional right. There are many who would love to see that happen, and I have no doubt that that probably will be a policy that's floated in front of the U.S. Congress and in front of state governments sometime in the very near future. I will not be surprised when that becomes an initiative that many people are fighting for. I think right now, generally speaking, there's a lot of federal legislation being fought for that can't pass because Congress is in a bit of a deadlock, thank goodness. And it's really being relegated to the states, where some say literally anything goes, including legally gray areas of infanticide. Fact check me, it is out there. Or some say we're just going to completely outlaw abortion, and this checkerboard reality is really starting to take shape across the country. But there are policies that are just as dangerous that aren't getting the same amount of media attention as a constitutionally enshrined right that I think we need to be just as, if not more, aware of than the flashy pro-woman feminists, even though it's neither of those things, headlines like the French Amendment. For example, this bad boy that hit headlines this week. CVS and Walgreens, the two largest pharmacy chains in the United States, announced that starting this month, they are going to begin selling abortion pills in pharmacies over the pharmacy counter in a few states across the country, in a concerted effort to try to make chemical abortion more accessible to women across the country. Just as a baseline factual starting point for this part of the conversation, the vast majority, up to 90+% of abortions that happen in America today are chemical abortions. They are pills that you are taking and you are being sent home, typically after you show up at a Planned Parenthood or an abortion provider doctor's office, and they make you swallow the first one while you're sitting there in front of them. And that first pill, it's actually two pills when we say the abortion pill, but the first pill cuts off nutrients and food supply to your baby and essentially starves them within the womb. And the second pill that you're instructed to take 24 to 48 hours later, you take it home and it expels your child from your womb. You deliver your baby at home. Typically, obviously, this is happening in the first trimester, so your baby is really small, but you are told by Planned Parenthood employees, by the nurse at your doctor's office, by influencers, by the mainstream media, by whatever, that this is just like taking a Tylenol, like a really strong Tylenol, which creates an image in your mind that this is a pain reliever. It's not going to cause pain for you. And there is absolutely nothing dangerous about this pill whatsoever. It's just like a hard period, a really difficult, heavy flow period that you'll get through. Kind of sucks for a few hours, but we've all had a hard period every once in a while. When in reality, women are literally hemorrhaging to death. They're bleeding out in their bathrooms from these pills. It's very rare, but it does happen. And they then have a task of delivering their baby, typically over the toilet or in the bathtub, holding their child in their palm, and they're very small, but they can see that's a person, that is my baby, that I just ended their life, and they are told to flush it down the toilet or down the bathroom drain. I am not making any of this up. In fact, even the very abundantly pro-abortion news source of the Washington Post recently ran a very long story interviewing women who've had chemical abortions at home about their experience, and these harrowing stories of girls who have delivered their baby over the toilet and then had to flush it down the toilet. Girls who said, I never was told I was going to look at my baby, and there I was holding him or her in the palm of my hand. I was in so much pain that I almost died. Like, I genuinely was bleeding out all over the bathroom, and I was never advised go seek emergency medical treatment. So I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Go read these stories for yourself, because it is horrifyingly scary and can in fact kill women as well. And what's really dangerous is you're doing this with zero medical supervision, typically at your own house, and told it's all going to be fine. It's just like taking a Tylenol and having a really, really heavy period. Trust me, go read these stories. I know that's a lot. It's intense for me to talk about, but it's important that we understand the reality. So 90+% of abortions in this country are happening because of these 2 pills that women are handed, told it's going to be great, and sent home. And that's already happening before it's available over the counter at pharmacies across the country. That's when you still have to go see a doctor. You still have to take a pregnancy test and confirm that you are pregnant. You still need to make sure that it's not an ectopic pregnancy, because that is so dangerous when you take abortion pills and it is in fact an ectopic pregnancy. Women have died from situations like this. All kinds of horrible potential realities that already exist under the current practice of chemical abortion in the United States of America. But that's not enough, apparently, because now this has been a fight that the abortion industry has been working towards for months and months and months and months, to make abortion pills available over the counter at pharmacies. And CVS and Walgreens have announced they are going to be the first pharmacy chains in the country to sell abortion pills available with a prescription at pharmacy counters, rather than having to go to a doctor or to an abortion provider to make sure that you are even pregnant to begin with. This is all going to start happening in the month of March. They say the 2 largest pharmacy chains in the U.S. are going to start dispensing mifepristone, the abortion pill, this month, a step that could make access easier for some patients. CVS and Walgreens said that they had received certification by the FDA to dispense mifepristone under guidelines that the FDA issued last year. The chains plan to make the medication available in stores in just a handful of states at first. They will not be providing the medication by mail, although there are already existing several ways that women are obtaining abortion pills through the mail, including through illegal drug trafficking, which is really, really, really scary. But we've created this fear campaign that you're going to die if you stay pregnant. You're going to die if you don't have an abortion. So you have to do this, even though we're actively putting their life at risk by taking these pills and trying to obtain them illegally to begin with. Both chains said that they would gradually expand to all other states where abortion was legal and where pharmacies are legally able to dispense abortion pills in about half of the states. President Biden hailed this as a huge win, of course, in a statement on Friday that the availability of the pill at pharmacies was an important milestone in ensuring that access to mifepristone is currently enshrined under policy, a drug that has been approved by the FDA as safe and effective. I would love to see what else the FDA has approved as safe and effective for more than 20 years. So this might be coming to your own backyard. Walgreens is going to start providing the pill within the next week at a few pharmacies in New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, California, and Illinois. CVS is going to begin dispensing in all of its pharmacies in the next few weeks in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Important to note, the chains will be monitoring the prospects in a few states, including Kansas, Montana, and Wyoming, where abortion bans or strict limitations have been enacted, but are enjoined because of legal challenges. So theoretically, it's going to be illegal to do this in those states, but we just don't really know yet because it's still up in the air with the court system. Imagine how devastating this is going to continue to be if you can show up with a prescription that, I don't know, theoretically, you got from telehealth, from a Zoom call with a doctor saying, I'm pregnant, I need the abortion pill. You get this prescription written to you and you go pick this up at CVS or Walgreens. You've never had to take a pregnancy test ever, so you might not even be pregnant, which is incredibly damaging. You certainly don't have to have an ultrasound to decide if this is or is not an ectopic pregnancy and how dangerous that might be for women whose lives are at risk if, in fact, this begins to happen. And we are going to continue the propaganda machine that the abortion pill, which kills the life of one person puts at risk and potentially kills the life of another person, and is beyond all explanation so emotionally traumatizing to women that it has destroyed the lives of millions of women for the last several decades, that this is nothing more than taking a heavy Tylenol, a very strong Tylenol, that this is nothing more than experiencing a heavy period, and all will be fine for you. E.S. Moyle says it's proof that they do not care one bit about women's health. Good grief. Yeah, they don't. They don't care about women's health when they decide to make this a constitutionally approved and enshrined right. They don't care about women's health when they put your health at risk by providing very, very dangerous medication available over the counter at pharmacies. And they certainly don't care about women's health or even the health of your baby if they refuse to let you watch a video of what the heck happens when you get pregnant and how a baby continues to grow. Period, full stop. And yet they have the audacity to call someone who is pro-life anti-woman. They have the audacity to call someone who is pro-life anti-science. They have the audacity to call someone who is pro-life anti-humanity or regressive or bigoted or any other label under the sun that they continue slapping on those of us who have done the work, done the research, done the soul searching, and realized we cannot stay silent anymore. I don't care where you fall along the political spectrum. I don't care what your personal religious affiliation is. I don't care how you would personally identify yourself as pro-life or pro-abortion or anything in between right now. But I want you really, really hard over the next several days or weeks, if you feel yourself on the fence about this issue, to really think about every other political issue. Sadly, this is political. I wish that it wasn't. But every other major political and cultural issue of our time. When every single pillar of culture, every loudest voice, everyone in a position of power is trying to get you to buy into the same narrative. When every major celebrity, every major influencer, every major school teacher, entire medical associations like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, when the President of the United States, when the FDA, when entire countries like the country of France are all trying to get you to buy into the same narrative about any subject, could you really call yourself the resistance or countercultural if you're going along with that narrative? You can't call yourself countercultural or the resistance or even rebellious against society if you are agreeing with every single loudest voice in positions of power in society. Period. Full stop. And if every single loudest voice on this issue, the President of the United States, the entire country of France, apparently, major medical associations that financially benefit from these procedures, mega celebrities that are being paid to promote this stuff, pharmacies that stand to financially benefit from these pills being dispensed, etc. If all of them in unison are trying desperately to silence any difference of opinion, to silence objective scientific truth on this issue, and to silence anyone who is willing to speak up with a difference of perspective, why are they trying so intensely, so difficultly to get you to believe what they are saying? If what they were saying is true, objectively, why silence anyone who disagrees with you? If what they are saying is true, why prohibit videos of human development from being shown in public school classrooms? If what they're saying is true, why slander and disparage every single pro-life individual as anti-woman and dangerous for society? It's worth thinking about. And if we look at every other human rights issue throughout world history, not even American history, and you say, I would have been on the side of XYZ, of the people fighting for liberation, of the people fighting for freedom, of the people fighting for legal equality, and yet you call yourself pro-abortion, I urge you to think again. If you say, I would have been against the Nazis, outspoken, and very, very proud of it, I urge you to think again if you call yourself pro-abortion. If you would have said, I would have spoken up about the Rwandan genocide before anybody else did, and you call yourself pro-abortion, think again. Think again. Because this is the Holocaust of our time. This is the genocide of our time. This is the largest human rights issue the world has ever seen. And everyone in positions of power is working unilaterally to silence any difference of opinion on it. So naturally, we need as many voices outspoken in the fight as possible. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter what you believe religiously. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what country you live in. None of the above. What does matter is our common shared humanity. What does matter is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of courage to stand up and fight and speak for what is right in a world that's trying to flip right and wrong, that's trying to flip truth and lies. And if we can embrace the tiniest amount of courage to do that, courage is contagious. And I can absolutely promise you, you are going to inspire others to do exactly the same thing. It's not easy. There's going to be a whole lot of backlash associated with it. Believe me, I do this for a living, so you should read my DMs in my comment section every once in a while. But it's worth it. And there is such a peace in laying your head down on the pillow at the end of the day and saying, you know, I may have pissed some people off today. Maybe I didn't get everything done on my to-do list. Maybe I'm not exactly where I want to be in my career. Maybe I'm not married yet and I really want to be. If you can put your head down on your pillow at night and say, I did what I could with the tools at my disposal to fight for what is right, then you did everything that you possibly could that day. Then you were the best version of yourself. We forget in society that one voice has a whole lot more impact than people often give you credit for. And it starts with doing something so simple. Repost a pro-life video to your Instagram story. You have no idea, the 500 people that follow you, how many people really need to hear that today or have never been exposed to a pro-life perspective ever because everybody's been so intentionally silenced in their lives. Take the time to raise your hand in class when your insane teacher is saying, life is not really a thing in the womb. These are these horrible propagandists trying to get you to believe it. Say, no, scientifically, that's not true. Here's this 3-minute video that can inspire you to understand scientific truth. Take your friend out for coffee and ask, hey, did you see that news story coming out of France? What do you think about that? And just start a dialogue, start a conversation. Because those seeking to do everything in their power to silence us can intimidate us. But the truth is, they can't really silence us. Even if they kick you off of social media, even if you get in trouble at school, even if your friend gets really annoyed with you and says, I just need some space with you for a while, space from you for a while, they can't take away your voice. That's the one thing that will always be inherently yours, no matter what the circumstances of the world around us are. So the question is, how are you going to use your voice today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day to fight for what is right? France, hang tight, pals. I'm sorry that you're going through this right now, and I'm sure it is so much more difficult to try to be outspokenly pro-life in your country where 80+% of the country is very happy about this new constitutional amendment. But wherever you guys live, I know we have a lot of people watching from France, lots in the UK, Poland, all over Europe, the United States, and more. Speak up, fight, seek the truth, do the research, take the time to understand what others are way too lazy or emotionally uncomfortable to understand. We need more people standing up and fighting now more than ever. And I hope that you guys will join me in the fight. Woo! All right. Great stream. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already gone to share that baby Olivia video with others, please go take the time to do that. It's from Live Action, and they are doing some really exciting work. Before we go, I want to invite you guys to join us this next couple of weeks leading up to Easter during the last few weeks of Lent on Hallow, which is America's largest Christian prayer app. You guys can download it from around the world as well. It was actually the #1 app in the App Store for a couple of days last week, which was super exciting. But Hallow is doing this really cool campaign called Pray 40 throughout the rest of Lent, where there's specific content following a very cool book about a prisoner of war who also became a priest, but also just everything related to Lent and what that entire process means, from people like Father Mike Schmitz, from Mark Wahlberg, from Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus on The Chosen. They have some really cool other voices joining in the second half of Lent right now, including Jordan Peterson's wife, Tammy, who's talking about her conversion to Catholicism and being miraculously cured from cancer and what that meant for her faith journey. Super excited for you guys to hear that one, by the way, because it is earth-shatteringly good. But over the course of the entire Hallow app, there are more than 5,000 prayers and meditations that you guys can use the link I just dropped in our chat, hallow.com/Isabel. That's HALLOW.com/Isabel to get a 3-month free trial to everything that they have on the platform. It is so life-changingly cool, the type of content that they are creating, and their prayers, their meditations, their podcasts, their stories about saints and great figures of Christian history have literally changed my life. Like, I listen to this working out at the gym instead of gym music now, and I probably feel like a freak when I'm doing that, but that's a-okay. It has truly been transformative in my own faith journey and experience, and I hope that you guys will consider checking it out too. So go right now to hallow.com, HALLOW/Isabel, ISABEL. Get that 3-month trial to join us for the Pray 40 campaign as it wraps up towards Easter at the end of this month. And please consider praying for me, as I will be praying for you when we get closer to the foot of the cross on March 31st on Easter. Whoop, whoop. All right, guys, we're going to be back for the stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank God our internet did not go out, but since it did during the middle of the day, I got to go catch up on a whole lot of emails and meetings and such. So that's it for today. We will see you tomorrow for the stream. Love you. Bye.